What is going on, explorers? Today, it could be today. It could be today, any day. It could be the day. But today is definitely one of those days because my name is Dante. We are 𝓟There Dante, and today we got
Remmorii.
We got Remmorii back in the building. We're going to have another deep conversation. We have a few topics we want to hit, but before we get into that, let me play the intro music. What is up, explorers? Before this episode begins, I just wanted to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure you check the link in the description below. Take you directly to our Patreon if you would like to support. You could support us for the low cost of a caramel ice cap from Tim Hortons. That's it. So if you'd like to support, make sure you go ahead, go to the Patreon link in the description below, and enjoy the episode. Peace.
Perhaps your skills do extend a bit farther than basketball.
Oh, shit, I messed that up. Yeah, so usually what I'll do is I'll just put in the pre-recorded. But as I was saying, my name is Dante. We are 𝓟There Dante. And today, me and Remmorii, we're doing a part 2. We had a great conversation, and we had... what would you say? A lot of unforeseen engagement on the conversation. I mean, obviously, we had this conversation with the intention of like posting it online. But when you do that, it's like you never know who's gonna see it, who's gonna respond, how they're gonna respond. You know what I mean? So you actually posted it on your TikTok, if you don't mind. Plug it for the people out there.
Yeah, it's the same as my name, REMMORII. If you want to check out our previous episode, everything's there.
Yeah. So actually, let's just hop into that real quick. So you posted it. I sent you like the file, or did you? Regardless, you cut up some clips and then you posted it. What was that like for you when they first started to like kind of uptrend?
For me, I was curious, as we were talking about earlier, like why are people like two things. I feel like first, people like to listen in on conversations rather than having somebody talk at them.
Okay, yeah.
So I think that's comes from like either parenting or school. Usually you would have a teacher teaching you stuff, and it's like we're not on the same level. We're not on the same level of understanding.
I got that. Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a good point. One of I would say one of my big inspirations, he talks about how a podcast should be like a wiretap. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
So it's like if me and you, this is the conversation that we would just normally be having. But then the people at home, you know, the explorers out there, it's like they have like the wiretap into the conversation, right? So it's like they get the real, honest, like this is how they would actually talk, regardless of, you know, podcasts. But then, you know, because there's some podcasts where it's like super produced, and then there's like, okay, so we have this segment, cut to commercial. It's like a TV show, basically.
Yeah.
But now podcasts don't have to be that. You can just literally have a conversation and people like listen in, and they can kind of like, it feels like you're saying they're on the same level because it's like you're just there in the room listening to the conversation.
I wonder if people who are more spiritual, if they learn more from being in experience rather than from traditional teaching. Like, I wonder if that's a commonality between spirituality, creatives. You know how there's different types of learning, and people who, I don't want to say book smart, but are academic.
Theory smart.
Or, yeah, I don't even want to say smart. Maybe like intuitive. Like it just.
Well, so I get what you're trying to say, because when in school, you know, they talk about, you know, there's 3 styles of learning, right? You're either a visual learner, you're an auditory learner, and then there's the third one that no one is, but everyone should be this learner, right? Which is the kinesthetic learner, which is that you learn by doing, right? So I always thought it was fascinating that they try and tell you that the main 2 ways that you learn is by seeing and hearing. And then the third one, by doing, that's like a rare thing. But if you learn by doing as a spiritual person, you're going to get a deeper understanding of whatever it is you learned, right? So it's like, I can watch 10 videos on YouTube how to make a McDonald's Big Mac. But until I make 10 burgers, it's a whole different
Yeah.
learning thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could watch it, but that doesn't mean it's because I watched it 10 times, I'm going to be able to just flip it and it's going to taste good, right? So to answer your question, I think, you know, if you're a spiritual person, the only way to learn is by doing, because that is what we're doing as people. Like, yes, we're seeing and yes, we're hearing, but we're doing.
I'm just thinking, like, as you're talking, is feeling then from an intuitive standpoint,
Yes.
not more of like a physical standpoint, one of our strongest senses.
It is. It's one of our most powerful senses, but at the same time, we don't believe in it in
Doubt
masses, right?
Okay.
So like the greater population, we don't all follow our gut instinct. Some people do, some people don't. But like you're saying, that feeling, it is one of our most powerful senses, but we're told to, oh, well, your feeling is not logical.
Wow.
But it's logical in a way that we don't understand,
Interesting.
right? Because it's a spiritual understanding, right? So once again, trying to make logic of something that has no form doesn't make sense because it's a formless idea. Just like a feeling is like a feeling is a formless experience. You know what I mean? It's like you feel it, so you know it's there, but at the same time, you can't. It's almost like you can't articulate it. You can't like logicize it, or you know what I mean. You can't like.
That
make
definitely
it,
reminds me of like the idea world. Like when you're pulling it down, it's a feeling, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that feels right.
yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, and I think that's because spirit, source, whatever, can't be seen.
Yes.
It can only be felt, and that's where.
Well, okay, so it can't be seen, but it can be felt. But can you see it with your feelings? Right? Because you feel it, so you're acknowledging it.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like just like
Yeah.
okay, I close my eyes and I touch this, I'm seeing that it's here.
True.
But I didn't see it with my eyes. So the same thing with the feeling is like, hey, you can feel that there's spirit, but you can't touch it or you can't see it, but you see it with your feeling. Or if you want to get real deep, if you've decalcified your pineal gland, my brothers, you know what I'm saying? But that's how you see, like, you know, you have two eyes to like see, but one eye to perceive, and the perception is like your feeling, you know. So I think at least tuning into that or trying to make a habit of like listening to that is how you get a better connection.
And I think that's what you're talking about last time about good vibes. And how, like, just the vibe of maybe conversations or people who have a similar spirit or feeling to you makes you allowed to connect with that. And I feel like a lot of people don't share their spirit out in the real world. Like,
Yeah, or it's altered.
yeah.
Right? Like you would like, because some people, if they're by themselves, that's their like most authentic self. But then you can't just be out in the public, you know, and this, that, because then people are gonna see you as weird, but you don't want people to see you as weird, so you alter. But you know, you can still put your most authentic self. Like that's something I try and do. Like I try and just, you know, be myself, whether I'm at home or out. But even then, there's still going to be a slightly different version of me that I would be at home versus out on the streets, because it's just two different situations.
Do you think if you were to talk to a stranger, do you think you could tell if they are being their authentic self by feeling? Is that what connection is?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
So you would be able to tell, but then would you trust that instinct?
And that's what you're saying. A lot of people in the world don't trust that instinct.
Yeah, they would literally say, "Oh, I felt bad energy, but I ignored it." It's like that's something that's telling you that something from everything you've learned in your past is telling you that you're not getting like good energy. But then you're like, you just ignore it, or you're like, okay, whatever. But you can sense when you're in a good mood, in a bad mood, in a good environment versus bad environment. And if you like a plate of food versus you don't like a plate of food, like it's kind of that simple. So it's like, if you meet a random stranger, I mean, okay, there could be like a complete like sociopath, and because those are strangers too.
Yeah.
So you might go up to them and they could just lie like so good that maybe I can't perceive that, and then maybe you never know. But I think in general, that you could probably get some sort of sense of like this guy's being genuine, or I'm seeing some sort of fakeness. But once again, it's like you have to trust that feeling.
Where do you think when do you think we were untaught how to trust our intuition? Like at what age do you think we were programmed out of it? Because I feel like now when your intuition speaks, you second guess if it's your intuition, where I feel like there was a period of time before where you would just accept that's the truth.
I think once you become like self-conscious of like what other people think of you,
that's when you stop listening to you.
That's when you stop listening, because then it's like, before that, you don't really care whether that intuition you have is real or not, or if it makes you crazy or not. So you don't care. Once you start caring of like, oh, like, this person's going to say this thing, is okay, well, I don't want to say it anymore. I don't want to be this way. So maybe it's like 8 or 7, 6, like around there. Once you start to care, like, oh, I want to fit into the group. You know what I mean? Type deal.
I feel like it's so interesting life. We're just working back to that point of time when we didn't care to get back to that oneness, because I feel like when you're born is when you're most connected to source or whatever.
Yes.
And then you unlearn that through wanting to please other people.
And
then I heard a quote that was pretty cool. It said that from 0 to 10, you're the person your parents want you to be. From 10 to 20, you're who you think other people want you to be. And then 30 onwards is when you come back to yourself.
Okay.
So it's interesting to think about, like, we go through this path of life.
Yeah.
To find our voice again.
Well, it's like one thing is it's a cycle, right? So yeah, we do go through the cycle where it's like we are connected, and then we're disconnected, but then you still feel like there's something that I can do to like reconnect, right? Because if you didn't think that you weren't connected in the first place, you wouldn't try and reconnect.
But that makes me question like enlightenment, and how they say that, this is what I've heard, I could be wrong, but they say that somebody who's enlightened will never say that they've reached enlightenment.
Yes. So
that's kind of what it reminds me about.
Yeah, because nothing is a finished state, right? So to you, right, to the observer, right, you might observe someone else as enlightened, right? But because the person you're observing, so the enlightened one, or whoever it may be, they do not perceive themselves as enlightened because they're actively trying to become enlightened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of it like a room with its light always on will never know darkness until,
a room with its light always on will never know darkness. I guess so. I mean, it's almost like
you're in that state, so you're not looking to turn on the light.
Yeah. So if you're always on, or you're always 100%, you have nothing to improve because you're already maxed out. But if the lights are off and you're like, okay, well, I want there to be light somewhere.
So if somebody else walks into the room, they're gonna be like, this room is already
this room's
bright.
dark as hell.
Oh, okay. This room is dark. Where's the light? But to the person, they're already seeing the light.
Oh, okay. Actually, here's a very good example. Okay, say all the lights in here were off, right? And you were chilling in here by yourself for like 30 minutes. Your eyes would adjust, right? Yeah. So you would actually be able to see in the dark. But then if I were to come in through the door and I had just been outside, this room will look pitch black to me, but it would look not as dark to you. And I'm like, oh man, this is dark. Let me turn the lights on. You're like, yo, turn the lights off. It's too bright. You know what I mean? So it's like, to you, it's already perfect because you're acclimated to it. So you wouldn't see no need to turn the light on because you can already see, right? But then me coming in, where it's like I come in, it's too dark. Now I need to turn the light on. But if I had just chilled for like a couple of minutes, I'd be like, oh, I can see too. And I think that's kind of like where enlightenment is, because it's like, if everyone would just chill out, just take a second and be like, yo, I'm already blessed. Like, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
And we're talking about gratitude.
I was just thinking about that.
Right? Yeah. So like if you already just take that 2 seconds to like really chill and be like, man, I woke up today, the sun's still in the sky, okay, I'm winning.
Facts.
You're enlightened. But if you're always looking like, oh, well, I gotta do this to become enlightened, I need to read 300 books, I gotta go to Tibet, I gotta do all these things, you're never gonna feel enlightened because you're always trying to become enlightened. And actually,
I wonder what an enlightened person's dream is like. Because I was just thinking about how we process dreams from everything that goes on. And I'm thinking, what is their dreams like if they're already connected to source? Because somebody asked a question about if...
Do you have the question?
Yeah.
Do you have their username or you just have it saved?
Yeah, Olivia Jade.
Olivia Jade, okay.
She said, so what I process in my dream and feel in this reality is me experiencing that separation of oneness. So I'm thinking, what are we doing when we're processing our dreams? Like, you know, is it an attempt that she's asking to connect back to source?
I personally think when you go to sleep, you return back to source because you don't have any inhibitions when you're asleep.
But do you feel like the source that we return back to is tainted because...
Tainted with what?
The human experience.
What is the human experience?
So are you asking if it's tainted, the human
Yeah,
experience?
well, I mean, you're saying the source experience is tainted by the human experience?
That's why our dreams are not able to understand it.
Well, okay, so you're saying we are not able to understand our dreams because of the human experience.
Yeah, what I'm trying to illustrate is if when we go to dream, what we're actually doing is an attempt to connect back to source.
Yes.
We don't understand our dreams because our interpretation of what life is taints what the actual connection back to source is because of all the programming.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that, so when you try and interpret the dreams, you can't because you're only trying to interpret it with earth stuff.
Exactly.
Yes, but at the same time, so I do agree it is tainted, but at the same time, it's not tainted because all this earth stuff is also still source stuff, right? So even when we dream, I think what happens when we dream is that our ego is what goes to sleep, right? So you're not fighting anything in your dreams because you're asleep. You can't fight if you wanted to. You're unconscious, right? So whatever your mind is doing is whatever a source is doing because you have no control. Your mind is following your gut instinct.
So do you think
asleep.
that source... Because this is what I was thinking. Do you think that source generates negative energy if it's from the source? And then the second question that I had was, I guess that...
Well, let me answer your first question.
Bad ideas.
So I think source generates energy. Humans attribute negative.
Or positive.
Because source is just source. And this could even tie us into the question about the three genders.
How?
Okay, because there's male and female, but then there's source.
Drop them.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is why I think that's kind of an interesting topic because it's like, okay, source energy is not going to be positive or negative. It's only when I see as this physical body sees that as negative, but it's not negative. That could be positive to somebody else.
Yeah.
So therefore, that source energy is like neutral almost.
It reminds me of like when an animal kills another animal. To us, we think it's bad, but to them, I need to eat.
It's not even that I need to eat. It's I'm hungry.
True.
You know
It's just what I do.
It's what they do. They don't even second guess it because they're connected to source, right? So my theory is like, if I can run off my gut instinct 100% of the time, I'm closer to source because it's my second guessing is what takes you away.
Yeah, that's like leaving flow. When you're in flow state, when you
Exactly.
doubt what's coming to you, you slowly leave flow. And that's so interesting about enlightenment because you only know you were in flow
Exactly.
once you leave.
Exactly.
So you only know that you reach enlightenment once you leave enlightenment.
You only know that you were enlightened,
Yeah.
right? So this is what I'm saying. Everyone is enlightened, right?
They just disconnect.
It's not even that they don't see themselves as enlightened, right? So it's like, once again, if you were just like, okay, it sounds maybe self-centered or whatever, but it's like you can claim to be enlightened and be like, okay, well, I'm enlightened and I can do whatever I want. Or you could just do whatever you want without no explanation, right? Because source doesn't have to explain anything. Source just does. So if I do whatever I want, as long as it's gut instinct, I'm following that source energy, right? And if you're in a flow state, that source energy is literally flowing through you, right? Because you're not doubting it. You're not like, if you're playing sports or you're playing basketball, you hit that flow state. It's like you actually just feel like if you're playing basketball and you shoot like a 3-pointer, you already know it's going in before you let go of it. It's like you can just feel it and you're just like, you know what I mean? But then it's like you celebrate the moment. You're like, yo, I just sunk 5 threes in a row. And then all of a sudden you're back to being bad. You know what I'm saying?
That makes me wonder what is the difference feeling wise between impulse and intuition? Because when you were talking about if we do what we want, then we're aligned with intuition, it could also be an impulsive thing. So how do we, because my thing is, if we're following intuition, we're not second guessing as we just talked about, because it would be in flow with source. But impulse could be the same thing, like, oh, I need a drink. Like,
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I guess like intuition, I don't know. How would you think?
Okay, so for me, as someone who, I mean, I don't know how else to say this, but like I was diagnosed like I'm hyper impulsive, right? So like not a lot of times, but sometimes my body will just do things before I can even think about it. So it's almost, I look at it like reflexes, right? So if you have like really quick reflexes and you touch like a hot stove, right? You're not going to be like, I should take my hand off because it burns. Your first impulse is to, just take it off. So that's how I see impulses. It's just like it's almost like a reaction. But like an intuition is almost like something that comes like to you, right? So whereas an impulse is like you're reacting to something here, and intuition is something that comes to you.
That's a good distinction, because I was thinking intuition kind of protects us in the future, or like it advises us for the future, whereas an impulse is like a desire for the present. That's kind of how.
Yeah, it's kind of like a present moment thing. But it's funny that you say intuition does the future, because all that exists is the present. Right? So even the intuition, yes, it is thinking of the future, but it's still in the present. And even as you're talking about that, I did have this thought that even say you were to touch a hot stove, that impulse is still coming from an external force, the hot stove, right? So maybe it's like a physical thing, or like, I don't know. I get intuitions all the time. They kind of just come to you from nowhere. You know what I mean? Or the idea world, or source, or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? And I just, if you want more ideas to come from there, you just accept all the ideas.
That's a good point. We were just talking about that, about how at first when you're starting to do anything and you're just creating, you're thinking about the voice of other people and then trying to listen to intuition's voice, which you haven't really developed a relationship with.
Yep.
But when you show up every day, it kind of, the voice is more familiar to you. But it also makes me think about relationships and soulmates.
Okay.
Like,
How so?
if intuition is based off of the relationship you have with it, and some people listen to it more, so they trust it more, so it comes more.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't been in a relationship before, how would you know that that person's your soulmate, or how would you intuitively know that person's right for you?
Personally, once again, I think you would just feel it. It's one of those things, like, as crazy as it sounds, I personally feel like if you met your soulmate, you would know. Like, it would be like, how would you not know? Almost.
So then my question to that is, what's soulmates? Because there was the whole thing about the Greek thing where Zeus put, like, we were one person, and then we got punished, and Zeus split us in half, and then we have to spend our entire lives looking for our soulmates. But
so, okay, so this is okay, that's... Sorry, keep going. I have a thought. I had a inspiration, so, but keep going.
The only thing I wanted to say with that, with a planet of 8 billion people, if you never leave your country and your soulmate lives in Europe,
Okay.
you could die never meeting them.
Do you believe in only one soulmate?
So I was talking about this with someone, and I was thinking that there are soulmates for specific periods of our time. So
Okay.
when I'm 15, I'm not the same person that I am now.
Yes.
So I had a soulmate for that age
Yes.
and that period of time and that period of stage in my life.
Okay.
But when I get older, if I'm not growing with the current soulmate that I have, then we fall out of synchronicity.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say that to add to that, like, yeah, if you and your soulmate are not growing together, right, you guys are going to basically come out of alignment. Like your vibrations are not going to be synced up, right? Because one person's growing and then the other person's not. One person is changing and then the other person's not. So if you're not on that changing frequency, things are just not going to be synced up, right? And this is why finding, like-minded people is so important, because I think like-minded people are like people that are at least tuned in to like the general frequency that you're on. You know what I mean? So if there's like a loose base aura that everyone has, that's like, I think, similar to this way. Like-minded people are like attracted to that aura. You know what I mean? Only people that like think the same way, because like, oh, this is interesting. Let me find out more. So it's like you're literally drawn to those kind of things. Whereas, if you find someone that's boring, or you try and have a conversation with them and then they're just like this, that, and da, and they're just excuses. You're like, I don't like this energy. I don't like being in your vicinity or whatever. So you'll go find, someone with a different energy, someone with a different mind.
You just gave me a question. Do you think that the punishment in this soulmate conversation, the punishment for not listening to your intuition, is not meeting your soulmate? So, for example, if your intuition tells you, move to Japan in a month, there's a job there, everything expenses, go.
Yeah.
And if you don't listen to that, your soulmate was there at that specific period in time.
Yes.
But because you didn't go, they left.
It's definitely possible, but then how do you know that every decision you make, your soulmate wasn't at the end of that decision?
What if it's all leading up to that, regardless of the decisions that you make? But I guess that comes with fate, right?
Yeah.
Because
so if you're saying regardless of what you do, you're going to get there, I don't care if I need to go to Japan or not. It's going to happen regardless.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So, and this is another thing.
Yeah.
If everything's in a cycle, things are kind of going to happen the way that they're already going to happen.
So do you think that intuition is a messenger of fate, or do you think intuition is an opposition of fate?
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And this is a very great question. I actually like this question. I think intuition is a messenger
of fate.
Right? Because you'll see in all these religions, all around the world, there's always a messenger god, right? There's always a messenger god. Right? So
Wow.
First, we'll start with that, okay? Now, we're talking about Greek mythology. Do you know who the messenger god for Zeus was?
Hermes.
Hermes, okay? So he had winged shoes, and he was the only one that was able to talk to God, right? Because he was able to talk to God and then bring a message down to Hades.
Wow. I didn't even take that part in. Even Hades couldn't talk to Zeus.
No, because Hades was wherever Hades was.
That's crazy. I've never thought of that.
But so Mercury, right? Or Hermes, sorry. Mercury's his Roman name. Right? So, and I'm telling you, we could go deep. I mean, we could go deep if you want to go deep. But, okay, so Hermes, like I said, he's the messenger of the gods. So he can talk to Zeus and Hades, right? So I'm assuming in your mind, you would say that Zeus lives in source or in heaven, right? And Hades lives on earth or hell, right? Whatever you want to call it, higher vibration, lower vibration. But Hermes can go between the two, right? So your intuition goes from source into you back and forth, right? Because you're getting different ideas. So it's like, oh, well, the mailman's at your door. You're going to slam the door in his face, or you're going to let him in and read whatever he's got, you know?
I was just thinking, if we're on the earth in this idea, and the message is coming up from Hades, but it stops at earth because we stop it.
Okay.
What is the opposite of intuition then? Because it's not impulse.
The opposite of intuition is
temptation.
It's not even temptation. It's you. I think the opposite of intuition is whatever, like, it would be like ego, right? Because your ego stops you from following your intuition.
Nice.
Right? So it's like you could follow it, but people would think of you as weird.
Protection of your identity.
That's what the ego does. The ego protects itself. It doesn't protect you.
No.
That's the difference, right? The ego protects the ego. The ego does not protect you. It does not protect source.
The ever changing.
Exactly, right? So this is another thing. The ego is never changing because the ego wants to stay the same, right? So you might even say, if you're the one growing and the other person is not growing, that's their ego. Or they're just listening to the ego staying in the same spot. But if you're listening to your intuition and your intuition says go outside and go to Japan or whatever, you're actively growing, right? You're actively expanding your mind. You're going further.
This reminds me of the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, because there's two choices, right? You had two choices and your life would have gone this way or it could have gone this way. So do you think every choice that we make, another alternate reality is created of that? And then also, what did you think about the movie in terms of that?
Yeah, okay. So to answer the first question, yes, because I think the universe is so big that infinite versions of it exist. Therefore, if an infinite amount of versions of the universe exist, there is a version of the universe where, because I made one decision, another universe split off.
So, before you talk more about everything all at once, my question is then, from that theory, do you think that our decisions create worlds? Like, are we the creator of worlds? I know that's a pretty blasphemous and controversial statement. Interesting.
Right? Because what is the difference? Right? We are, right? If we are already source experiencing separation, that means we can create universe. Every time we make a decision, that's a new universe, because there's a different universe where you went left and then there's one that you went right, right? But we don't know that. Like, some people know that, other people don't. But and this is, I think, what they talk about, at least what they try to portray in Everything Everywhere All at Once, because you can tap into these, right? Because there's this theory is like there's like the multiverse, right? And you can tap into different universes where you have different sets of skills. And So we're talking about intuition, and we're talking about the multiverse, and we're talking about everything, everywhere, all at once. Okay, so in the movie, they had a great portrayal of intuition. Do you remember what it was?
The green thing?
In a way, yeah. So in the movie, when they wanted to jump to a different universe, that's like do some like wacky whatever thing.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so but take this in. Their intuition is like, oh, you wanna make it out of the situation, you gotta cut your fingernails or cut your
slits.
You gotta do that nasty shit that no one likes, but they always do it everywhere. You know what I mean? So you have to do that, right? Now, the ego will be like, nah, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's weird, or it hurts.
Yeah.
Right? You might be scared of pain, right? But if you want to be able to jump to that universe, like he does in the movie, the guy doesn't even hesitate. He's just like,
Do the same one like 7 times. Like.
yeah, right? But to him, he knows that if he does that, he's going to be able to download the karate or whatever. But if he doesn't, he's going to get beat up. He's going to stay the same and be lame.
So that's the intuition in order to jump, but people want to stay the same with where they are. They don't want to do the uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
In order to elevate.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because I saw him, like, okay, why do you have to, remember he like took
chapstick?
The chapstick and like ate it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like interesting, but now he gets to do whatever. So I'm like, okay, make a note of that. And then it's like every time they wanted to jump universes, it's like it's not even jump universes, it's like sync in with the different universe, right?
Yeah.
Because all the universes are aligned.
And it reminds me of that thing you were talking about the black hole, about like how it squashes like many different reiterations of the same thing live on the same.
Yeah, exactly. So many different versions, and they also tried to show this in the movie because they switch between universes throughout the movie, right? But then there's one universe that has elements of all the universes in the universe, right? So it's like the one where they're in the office, right? But then the kung fu guys are in the office, and then they still have their kung fu uniform on, but from the different universe, but it's in the office universe, right? So that's, I guess, trying to symbolize like the prime universe, meaning wherever universe you're conscious in, if that makes sense. Like you're conscious in this universe, so everything you see is a connection of all the other.
You know
universes.
what's so interesting about that? When you shift career or try a new skill, you see the world different. Like
yes,
you know what I mean.
Yep.
But that's like you coming from a different universe to see the world differently. Because I remember when I started like really looking into videography and photography, I noticed colors. I noticed composition that I would have completely.
Why does the corner of that building look so cool?
Yeah, I know, right? Everybody walks by it. Like,
yeah. But that's so that's it right there, right? So you wanted to download the vision or the consciousness of a videographer, right? So it's like, okay, well, let me start doing more research. Let me go out and start shooting videos. And the more you do that uncomfortable thing, because people can just sit there and, like we're saying, watch 10 videos on how to shoot videos versus actually shooting videos, right? Like, do you want to learn by watching someone else learn, or do you want to learn by learning? Like, I don't understand. Like,
because they give you the option of what uncomfortable thing do you want to do to download this thing, you know?
Yes, but also, if I remember correctly, they had like 3 options, and like each one was like a little bit weaker than the other one.
Yeah, facts.
Right?
Facts.
So it's like you could do the most uncomfortable thing, or you can like do this thing or something less awkward, you know, less embarrassing.
Yeah, the potency of the uncomfortability equals the equivalent exchange. It reminds me of, have you seen a Full Metal Alchemist?
Yes.
And that's what it reminds me of.
Yes.
The equivalent exchange. You need, what you give is what you get.
Yeah. Well, and this comes into that topic that we were talking about earlier, right? The topic of, 3 genders, because it's what you put in, which would be masculine, and then what you get out, which would be feminine, right? But that whole process.
Sorry, that reminds me of plugs. You know,
That's exactly what plugs are. This is what's so funny, like
because electricity is source, and that's the third.
Well, it's coming from source. It's coming from somewhere, but you plug the male end of the plug into the female end
to get connection.
To get connection, right? So, like you're saying, everything is like you put something in and you get out. That's how the universe works. You put something in and something comes out. So there's the male aspect of putting in and getting something out, which is the feminine. But the universe is that whole process. So it's not male or female because it's doing both of them.
It is both the male and the female, and it is also both the connection.
Yes.
The universe.
And this ties us back to Hermes Trismegistus. What up? I don't have it. Is it here? Anyways, Vaughn just walked in. But okay, so if we go back to Hermes Trismegistus, because this guy has a lot. I've done a lot of research on this guy. Okay. I don't know, because Hermes, right, is the messenger of the gods. So he can go from Zeus to Hades, right? So he can go all the way up and all the way down. And Mercury, who is the Hermes equivalent, right? So he's the same god. He's the messenger god, right? You know, same thing. But Mercury is also seen as like the divine hermaphrodite.
Interesting.
Because it's both male and female.
Interesting.
Right?
Because it travels. It makes me also think about like masculine and feminine energy, and if you give a female groceries, she'll make a meal.
Yes.
Don't take that the wrong way. It was just
if you give her bread, she's making a sandwich.
You know, if you give her sperm, she'll
make a kid.
Yeah, if you give her your house, she'll make it a home.
Exactly.
So, like, I understand why it's the male's purpose to give, because the female extracts out and multiplies.
Exactly. It's like, so even they say like Mother Earth, right? You plant one seed into Mother Earth. Mother Earth gives you back a tree with like 1,000 seeds on it.
Because of Father Time.
Could be, yeah.
You know, because she works with time to grow.
Well, exactly, because time is always moving, right? Or everything is always moving. So that's how we perceive time. Time is just movement.
That's so interesting, because you mentioned that about the chair in the last episode, about how it's just vibrating very high, but it's still moving.
Yeah.
But time is what slows it down, right?
No. What slows down the matter is the temperature, right? So if something is really hot, it turns into fire, right? Like if I were to like light this on fire, the molecules would shake up so fast that it would burst into flames. But if I were to freeze this, it's gonna, like, or water. So I'll tie it back one more time, all right? Hermes Trismegistus is also Mercury, okay? Mercury is the messenger god for the Romans. We also have the metal Mercury. Do you know what's so interesting about Mercury?
It's both hard and soft, no?
Oh, it's both male and female. So like Mercury literally melts at room temperature. So when it's solid, it's in its masculine form. But then when it melts, it's feminine, right? Because, you know, the feminine is all liquid, chaos, formless, whereas masculine is form, direct movement, whatever. So, but Mercury, right, the messenger god, goes between male and female. Right? It goes between the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain. It goes between the conscious side of your brain, masculine, versus the unconscious.
Oh, that's why our dreams are chaotic, because it's
all feminine.
It's feminine energy. No offense.
No, but this is the thing. We only see chaos as bad because we attribute it to bad. But chaos is just randomness. Like, what's the difference?
Like, that's like music, right? Music is organized sound.
Yes, but if you've never heard a sound before, it sounds chaotic.
Yeah.
Like, remember the first time you heard dubstep and, just like, because you didn't know, like, what you're hearing?
Yeah.
This is pure chaos. But when you're producing it, it's like, okay, this is coming here. You can literally see what everything is about to happen. But if you never heard it, it looks like chaos.
Wow. That's so interesting. What do you think about the balance of masculine and feminine energy in both parties?
Okay. Well, I think both men and women both have male and female attributes, right? If men or if women had no like masculine attributes, you would just be like water. You know what I mean? Like you would just be melted. You need to have some sort of form. You need to have some sort of, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like masculine and feminine is as integral in the universe as.
You can't have a universe without it, to be honest.
But the thing is, the universe is both, right? So.
I guess that comes back to separation.
Mm-hmm. But what I was going to say is we each have both masculine and feminine. And so to me, it's like you should be going between the two. Like some days you should be more masculine and some days you should be more feminine, meaning like some days you might have to just do work. You know what I mean? Some days you just have to do work, whether it's like, I got to hammer in these 10 nails and da-da-da-da-da. But then other days you have to like brainstorm, right? Where you have to, think about something. You have to see things from different perspectives. Maybe it's not like physical ease, like, because when I mean work is like straightforward, just like press this button, like just task, right? Whereas sometimes you might need to like, think of new ideas, but how do you think of new ideas? Well, ideas just come to you because you don't have any control over it. Like you have some control of like how you think, but you don't have any control of how the ideas come to you.
I was just thinking about how the consistency and discipline is a masculine. The relationship you have with source and the ideas that come to you is feminine because the chaos is there, but you have to create a structure by repetition and showing up for the ideas to come down.
Exactly.
And that is where everything is created from.
Exactly. You have to create the structure in order for the chaos to be funneled down.
In order for the chaos. Sorry.
Yeah, play on words. But that's what it is. You from chaos you make order, right? From darkness you make light, right? And if you look at the yin and yang, it's like the black side of the symbol has the white dot because the light is coming, the order is coming from the chaos, right? But then that's kind of the same idea on the opposite side, whereas in complete order, it's chaos because it's like everything's just stuck, frozen. And you get what I'm saying? Because that's what chaos is. It's like full, everything going everywhere all at once. In a way, like you know what I mean? And even go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wonder if there was a coincidence that the leads were female.
No, there's no coincidences.
You see what I'm saying? Because even what you just said, everything, everywhere, all at once, that is chaos. And it's feminine energy. There's feminine.
Yes.
And like, I don't think the movie would have worked as well if they were male.
I wouldn't say that, but I will say that the fact that it is consistently that chaotic is the order of it.
You know what's my favorite?
Do you get what I'm trying to say there? Like,
yeah.
if you turn the scale up to 100% chaos, at least you know it's at 100%. So you don't have to like question anything because everything's already open, so everything can happen. You don't have to question that because it's already at 100%. But if you turn the chaos to like 70%, it's like, I don't know what's chaos versus what's order, right? So we live in a universe that's completely out of our perception. Like we don't really know what's going on. You could say that that's 100% chaos, but because it's 100% chaos, that's also the order of everything. Everything is chaos in a way, but then it's not because we bring order to things.
That kind of reminded me of like, in the middle of the movie when it ended, and you're like, "Yo, is the movie done?"
I did think about that, but I was confused. But yeah, keep going.
And I was thinking that.
What's that? You got to grab something? All right, come through. Hey explorers, Dante here. Just wanted to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below if you would like to support. You could support the Patreon for the low cost of a caramel ice cap from Tim Hortons. So if you like to support the message, the platform, the page, go ahead and click the description below. Back to the episode. So the part where you're saying it ends, but what happens? Like, what happens when it ends? Like, it just cuts out, right?
Like, the credits roll, and she wakes up into a new dimension.
Oh, that was, okay. That was right in between the parts.
Yeah.
Because they split it up into parts, yeah.
And I think that's the order behind it, too. There was part 1.
Part 2.
And then
part 3.
It's like everything, everywhere, all at once. And that's when they mastered all of the dimensions.
Yeah, exactly. Because okay. That first I want to just say that first part was so chaotic for me. Like, the first opening scene where she's got like all the bills on the table and like everyone's like trying to talk to her. I just like went for a smoke before that, and like my heart was racing. I'm like, yo, the bills got to be paid. I'm like stressing out for her, but I'm like, okay, it's just a movie, right? So I think they portrayed that everything.
I never even thought about that till you just mentioned that right now, which is crazy.
What do you mean?
Like, I never realized that everything was everywhere all at once in that opening scene.
Yes.
And there was so much going on. And that's one thing I love about connection and talking to people, because the way I saw the movie is completely different from the way you saw the movie or the person who asked a comment. It's completely different.
It's completely different, and you will never know what the other person says until they say it out loud.
Wow.
Right? Because, like, there is no way, even if me and you were identical twins, our brains would work the exact same. So we can't really see things the same way. So, like, to that point, I'm watching this movie and I'm freaking out because there's so much going on. Because I'm just taking in, like, there's like the whole table. Do you remember? It's like receipts everywhere. Yeah. Then they got the meeting the next day. I'm like, like I'm getting PTSD. Like, this reminds me of my old job. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much going on. And then you're right, it like cuts out. And I'm like, okay, whew. Then it came back. And then, funny enough, that's when my my machine died. Remember? Because I was telling you my computer died. Right when my computer died, right when she had gotten like the things in her ear, so she was like going through all the universes, and then it crashed right when she got to the Kung Fu universe, right? And I wanted to take a picture of like the scene that it froze on, because it's, like I said, nothing's a coincidence. So the fact that it ended on this scene, like, or it crashed on that frame, is like,
well, what
it's
frame
aside
is
for me. So basically, it was saying everything is kung fu, even this cookie. I was like, do you get it?
No.
Because, okay, say you practice kung fu, right? Like the martial art, you would practice it daily. Oh, yeah, thanks. Say if you wanted to bake a cookie, you would practice that every day. What's the difference between that and kung fu? They're both daily practices. They're both consistency. They're both building in that order structure in order for the chaos to come down. And, now I know how to do a spinning heel kick or bake the best tasting chocolate chip cookie. They're both the same thing. They're both kung fu. At least that's what the frame ended up. You know what I mean? Because everything is source. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Kung Fu and making a chocolate chip cookie, there's no difference in the process. Like, okay, there is a difference, but there's no difference.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
That's so interesting. And I think when people start creating or they start following something, listening to their intuition, they often find a need to be inspired. Like, oh, I want to find the world's best cookie baker, and then I can follow them, and then I can make the best cookie.
Yeah,
but like the world's best cookie baker thought the same thing to start. But
it could be, right? Because I think about this too, like, who becomes the best versus like, the people that just say they want to be the best. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, who actually becomes the best? Is it like the person that's just like, I'm trying to just get better every day? Or is it the person that's like, I'm trying to just be better than that guy? Who in the long run is better?
In my opinion, the person that has an intrinsic motivation
to improve themselves.
Exactly, because that is a never-ending goal. Because once you become better than that guy, then what's next?
Well, that's the main thing. What happens when you're better than that guy? You don't have any. You're right, any motivation, which is the same thing as in enlightenment, right? Because if you're always trying to, just improve, you're always trying to enlighten. Versus the guy that's like, I'm only trying to be better than that guy. So now that I'm better, I don't have to actually get any better than I am because I'm only better than him, and that's all that matters.
Why do you think people don't want to improve? Is that an ego thing where their ego just wants to stay the same?
The ego wants to stay the same, and change can be scary.
Because I think I don't want to generalize, but some people, they only decide to better themselves when they have no choice, or when I was going to say when somebody else who they grew up with or something gets better than them, but then I just realized that might turn into hatred. So I was going to say that, or when they have competition, that's when they decide to get better.
Yeah.
So either when they have no choice, like I need to pay the bills, I need to become a better person.
Well, the thing is, even then, there are some people that when it's time for the bills to be paid, they'd be like,
So you think that's an ego thing? Because from my understanding, ego doesn't really have a lot of foresight. Like it doesn't understand that.
No, it has no foresight because all it cares about is protecting itself for this moment, but not for the long run. Right? Like in for some reason, it would be wise to, have a good savings plan and prepare for the future and all these things. But the ego would be like, oh, let's just go partying this weekend because that's what's going to be fun. But the I source, whatever, understands that, okay, sure, you have fun for one night, but then what happens for all the other nights? Are you even thinking about that? Some people don't. They only think about, there are some people where it's like they work Monday to Friday. Friday comes, okay, it's turn up Friday night. It's turn up Saturday night. Sunday night, you can't turn up because then they have to go to work Monday. And then it's just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, Friday's coming up. Turn up Friday, turn up Saturday, right? So they might be stuck in that sort of, loop and not feel the need to have to get better because it's like, okay, this is already pretty good.
So do you think people who live in that mindset are disconnected from their intuition?
Well, here's the thing. Here's another thing. That also just might be their intuition, right? Because if everyone had the same intuition as you, what would literally be happening right now?
That's a challenging thought for me to process because I think that intuition's a personalized experience. But I understand what you're saying because from what I'm understanding, if all ideas, including bad ones, because there are bad ideas.
No.
There aren't? You don't believe there's bad ideas?
No, there's ideas, and then we decide if they're bad.
True. Because the idea
I bet you Hitler probably died thinking he had no bad ideas.
Facts. I understand what you're saying.
Right? Because ideas, once again, are not bad or good. They're not male or female. They're not English or French. They're just ideas.
That is such a good point, actually, because if somebody sees a body of a naked woman, right? Like, it may be beautiful.
Yep.
But to other people, it may be sinful.
Yeah. Yes.
So
exactly.
The idea is not bad. Like, the photographer knows, or the painter knows
whoever.
what they're doing.
Yeah. But so to that point, yeah, I don't think ideas are bad, and it's only the person who's observing it is going to attribute bad or good.
And that's why art is so hard to quantify, because the creator's job isn't to make you think this is good or bad. The creator's job is to make you think. That's what I think.
It could be, or the creator's job could even just be to put this art and just leave it there. You know what I mean? They could just make the art. People see it, they see it. If they don't, they don't. Like, some people, they might make stuff for people to see. Like, once again, these are all different intuitions, right? Someone could have the intuition to be like, oh, well, I just create. I do my doodles, I sketch, I da-da-da-da-da. I don't share with nobody. I don't post it nowhere, and they're all in my sketchbook. My sketchbook's locked up in the closet. No one ever sees them, but their intuition is still to just draw. Some other people might be like, oh, well, my intuition is to, go out and do whatever and make lots of money. Or that could be part of their ego, right? Their ego might be like, oh, well, if I do this art, I will then make a lot of money. And then because I have this money, I can now do da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
So I was thinking that the ego could also be like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, so let's not share this.
Yes.
So then it makes me think, do you believe some art or some things that we create are not meant to be expressed? Because sometimes, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we get an inclination, I want to share this. Other times it's, I need to document daily.
Yes.
You know? So do you think that certain work is not meant to be shared, or is our ego getting in the way, preventing us from sharing it? Or do you, because like that makes me think of like freedom of speech, right? Because that's expression. Are all opinions meant to be shared, even though they're...
Okay, so the first thing, are all ideas meant to be shared? I mean, to be honest, probably, because we are only feeding our experience. Like, if I took everything I knew and just kept it for myself, what good does that do anybody? It only does me good if I never share anything, right? So it's like, okay, well, maybe you start sharing, this is how I make cookies, or this is how I do this. And that's how you're really good at sharing with people. That doesn't mean you have to share everything, because you might share like, oh, well, this is my address. You know what I mean? But you don't want to do that, because then people are going to be like, oh, well,
Cash me outside.
Legit, right? So yes and no. Like, obviously, it's up to the person to decide what it is they feel like they want to share and they don't want to share. You know, like you can go through your whole life sharing everything. See how, like, for instance, if you're like a nomadic lifestyle, you live off the grid, you're subsistence farming or whatever, you don't, you're basically sharing the earth with the earth. You know what I mean? Because you're not like hoarding anything to yourself. It's just like, oh, well, I have these horses, they help me do this. I feed the horses help me move or whatever. Whereas, we might be like, oh, well, I need to make $1 million so I can have a Lamborghini, which is a horse, but it's a metal horse, and I'll just keep it in my garage.
So you're saying, what's the point of buying the Lamborghini? Or
I mean, you can decide to, I want to drive this Lamborghini because, I like Lamborghinis and I enjoy driving it, which is, that's fine if that's what you want to do, or you can just get a Lamborghini. Like I said, it all depends on the person. If they want to share, they can. If they don't, they don't.
And I think that relates to why people don't bring their authentic energy up. And I feel like that is a reflection of an artist, because when you put an art on the wall, you're saying, "Here, judge me. I'm like, this is me, regardless of how you feel about it." And I feel like that's what artists are, because they have a persona, and they're not inviting the world, but they're expressing themselves in a way that the world is going to judge them. But people often shy away from bringing their true self.
Yes, out of fear, out of that judgment. See if out of fear of that judgment, right? So it's like they might not do something because they're afraid of being made fun of. But say they put out that piece, they don't know that that piece could have inspired somebody, right? Because like we're saying before as we're starting, you never know who's going to see what, how they're going to react to it. So why in my mind, am I thinking, oh, people are going to bully me for this? I don't know what these people are going to think.
No, that's fact.
You know? So, the way I look at it is like I put out, like, for instance, this podcast, right? This podcast for me is my funnel to funnel all the chaos for the people into some sort of order, so that way they can learn at least one thought of value. Like, that's my whole thing. Just one thought. I've made it so simple that I can do it every single day, right? Like, if my thing was like, oh, I need to make 100 videos a day, and then, bro, that'd be way too much. But it's like, okay, one thought of value. I'm doing this consistently, where, embracing chaos, because we don't know what we're really going to talk about before we go and start recording. But we know that by having this conversation, we're now channeling through, right? We're receiving messages from Hermes, right? And, and I'm just like giving it to the people. I'm putting it in a place for the people to come and look at it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm building like a library, and if people want to walk into the library and check out a few podcast episodes.
That's so interesting. It's like it's so cool. Like, it's like a library. Like, these ideas are not ours. We just rent them,
Yes.
Like, here, read. This book was amazing. I made it. Read it.
Yep. And that's a good point. These ideas are not ours. We just rent them. So to go back to the ego thing, it's like, who are you to like hold on to ideas? Because, this is my idea. Fam, that's so selfish. You're going to hold an idea to yourself.
You were going to share that idea anyways.
That idea was never yours. People shared it with you.
Wow. Yeah, because, this ego is so interesting, because it wants to personalize everything.
To itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only to itself. I don't think the ego does anything
with other people.
Yeah. It might use other people to feed itself.
Yeah.
Right? So it might be like, oh, well, if I can, help this guy make this much money,
then he's going to reimburse me, and I'll be like.
Exactly. Whereas people just be like, oh, well, I'm just doing this to do it. I don't know what's going to happen. And also, I find that when you do that, things actually can work out better than you expected, right? People only think of things happening worse than you expect. But things can, and they do all the time, happen better than you expected.
Yeah, I love that quote. It's like, what happens if everything goes like better than expected? Or what happens if everything goes according to plan? Or what happens if you actually get there? And like, for a long time, it was hard for me to understand the fear of success.
Okay.
But I understand, as I've been learning more, that ego is the one who fears success.
How so? Why would ego fear success?
Ego fears true success because it's going to have to change. And it doesn't like to change in that moment.
So, okay, so if you get successful, how would ego change in that sense? Like, what would happen?
Well, I think ego's version of success to what an actual beneficial version, a pure version of success, to us is different.
Okay.
It's combative. True success, I believe, has to do with bettering the world and not necessarily bettering yourself. It's adhering to an idea or to a purpose that is bigger and outside of ourselves.
Okay.
Ego wants success for ourselves.
Okay.
It wants the fame so other people can validate us because we need that validation.
Okay.
That's its version of success.
Yeah.
But I think that aligns with purpose. Our true version of success is living and adhering by what we were brought here to do for whatever dimensions that we're able to cross during this.
So you're saying that success would be, basically, as long as it's not like a selfish thing, whatever you would determine success to be, right? Because once again, one person's success could look different from other people's success. You know what I mean? So like, if the ego is like, oh, well, I just want to make $1 million, like, I get why, but I don't understand, like, is it because, like, it's easier? Do you feel like we lean towards that version of success? Like, more people are more inclined to let me become a millionaire version of success versus, like, let me just do whatever I want and define my own version of success. Do you think that's because they're going off of other people's versions of success, which would be the ego?
I think it's a societal, idealistic, programmed version of what success is because, as we were talking about earlier, we believe whatever our intuition is before we get influenced by other people to care about their opinion.
Yep.
That version, that's why they always ask you, what do you want to be as a child?
Yep.
Because that's when we had the purest connection, because that's what we want to be, and that's what we consider to be success.
And that's also, those answers you get from when you're a kid. There's, they always say, like, kids are so mean. You know what I mean? Because the kids will say whatever's on their mind. Is that mean? Are you being bullied by a 5-year-old? Or, like, are you, you know what I mean? Like, these sort of things. And you're right, because they are in that energy. They're just there consistently. And it's not until they, like I said, start caring about other people, they get out of it. Because you're right, they'll ask a kid, like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's literally right there.
Yeah.
They don't have to think about it because their whole being is like, well, I want to be a doctor. You know, I want to be a firefighter.
And it's always from such a pure place. I just want to help people.
Yes.
It's like, that's
it's simple.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But I think we, over time, feed into, like, that's what society and culture over time. And I was asking somebody this question, but let me first finish my train of thought because my mind does that.
Yep.
But society's idea of success is something that we're feeding into. Business and corporations paint a picture and a story to try to get us to feed back into the economy. Like, work hard your entire life so you can buy this Lambo. But everybody knows that people who drive Lambos don't work in corporate. They own.
They own the corporate.
But they'll never tell you that by how the story is portraying it. They'll portray it like the life that you're living right now is inadequate. You need these stuff. Work hard at your job. The job that you hate. We know you hate it, but work hard. I don't care to get these stuff, and it'll make you feel good. Don't worry. Trust me.
Right? And so this goes to the point. If you're always working to be successful or enlightened, you're never going to feel it.
No.
Right? But if you're just like, you're just cool with where you're at in life, you're just chilling, you're more successful already because you don't see yourself as not successful. It's not even, you know what I mean? Like, the other person might be like, oh, well, this guy is not successful because he doesn't have a Lamborghini, but here you are stressing, working 80 hours a week, trying to get a Lamborghini. You're pulling your hair out. This guy's chilling on a beach. Like, what is success?
And it's so interesting because that's where I think manifestation comes into play. Because the idea behind manifestation is you want to dwell in the feeling because that's what everybody chases, right? It's not the actual car. It's not the car. It's
sometimes it's the car, though. If you like cars, like I'm going to stick up for car guys, it's definitely the car.
But, like, I'm saying in like with the idea, it's the idea of the car, right? It's how the car makes you feel. That's what you're chasing.
Yeah, because if I get this car, all the honeys are gonna want to.
Or even like, I love the feeling of driving it very fast.
True.
So it's the feeling that you're chasing. But if you really are already dwell in that feeling and you've experienced it, then it's familiar to you, and I guess that's where the attraction comes in, because we're talking about the range of the frequency, and like maybe your car's at like 97.9 FM and you're at like 70 FM. It's like, okay, I'm tuning in. I can hear the engine roaring.
Exactly. 100%. And I think this is also where, like, you know, meditation is so important because you practice tuning into those frequencies. You know what I mean? You actively practice tuning in to be like, okay, if I have a Lambo, what does my environment look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What do I hear? Do I hear what it's like to shift from first to second gear? Like, all this is all versions of meditation. And if you practice that, I think you bring yourself closer to actually manifesting it, right? Because, well, we'll tie this back into everything. But it's like, everything starts from the thought, right? So everything starts from an idea. It starts from the wavelength, right? So it's like, okay, if you want that wavelength here, you have to almost study it. You have to study the ups and downs of it, the whole code of it, or whatever you want to say. And once again, I think that's where meditation comes in. It's like, okay, I like this, I don't like this. This makes me feel this way. How do I stay in this sort of feeling? Because, you know, like when you, okay, think of it like this. Say you thought of something cringy in your past that you did. You cringe physically now, right? So you have that feeling, right? And I think one of the best ways to manifest is if you think of something in the future and that makes you feel a certain way, almost like write that feeling down, but you can't. But you know what I'm saying? Like, take note of that feeling and just try and just tune into that, because that is that universe frequency almost.
It makes me think of sports. Like, a lot of people don't believe in manifestation, but if you get good at any skill,
yes,
right, you can see the painting done before you even touch.
Yeah, and this is why it was so awesome that the movie paused on even this cookie is kung fu. Right? Because you're right. You can see it done before it's even done.
Yeah.
But that's how everything in this universe comes to be. Therefore, everything is manifested.
Wow. That's so true, because we're talking about a table, everything that's made, everything that's in front of us. So it came from a thought, as you were saying.
Yes.
And somebody saw the end result before it was even there.
Yes.
And I almost feel like manifestation is the wrong word. It feels like it's inevitable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So to the point, right? So if all these were manifested, right? What manifests the earth? What manifests the sun? And is that if all these are already en route to becoming manifested, is whatever the universe doing already en route to do whatever it's doing?
That makes me think of the order and chaos of earth. Like, if the earth was shifted like slightly, it wouldn't be habitable.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't be in the golden ratio, wherever they talk about. Yeah.
Is that what it's called, the golden ratio? Like,
yeah. So
is that how it shows up in nature too? Is that the same?
Yeah.
So you're saying the universe and the placement of the planets are in a golden ratio, the same one that's...
Yeah, because anything outside of that ratio is dead.
Wow.
So even in our multiverses, right? There are multiverses that are outside of that golden ratio, where, like, you know, it's just rocks, or who knows what it is.
So it's a perfect balance of chaos and order, because we're so perfectly ordered in that golden ratio that it's chaos on earth.
It's chaos and order, and we're actually the gray line, right? We're actually the line in the middle of the yin and yang symbol, because we're the Mercury, bro. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, we're the Mercury, we're the Hermes, we're the messenger God, because we can have foresight and bring it to earth and manifest it.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? Like, if Source is able to do that and we're able to do that, are we Source?
Yeah, because a lot of religions say that God lives within us or source lives within us. So how, how are you different from source? Because like if like for example, like
the ego's different, or is it? I don't know.
Because I'm thinking like if somebody calls himself a pianist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just walk around saying, or like I'm a doctor, piano player, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't see that. It's inside them.
Yes.
So what is different from you calling them a piano player from them actually physically playing the piano?
Them playing the piano.
Exactly. So if our actions dictate the same of the universe, what makes us different from the universe? To your point.
Say that again?
So if our actions are the same as how the universe creates, or it's aligned with it, what makes us different from the universe?
We're not.
Exactly.
This is the issue. We think we are, but we're not.
So ego wants separateness. Ego wants personalization of.
Yeah, because
That's how it lives.
if ego wasn't there, we would understand that we're a source. But ego wants to be in control.
So what ratio or what do you think the role of ego is then? Because it was given to us, I guess, assuming by source. So do you think ego's role is to help us understand it from an individual level?
I think ego's role is similar to what gravity's role is.
To keep us locked down?
Well, gravity is a force that's like pulling us down, right? Pulling us, whatever. Maybe the ego is what's pulling us to stay the same, but we actively fight against that. So like if a tree wants to grow out of the ground, it has to grow against gravity. You get what I'm saying? If a tree grows up, gravity's still pulling it down, but at the same time, it's still growing. It's growing up against gravity.
So would you say that ego is a natural force?
Yes. Because everyone has ego. For the most, everyone has ego.
So then intuition is, I see why you said it's the opposite, because intuition is also a natural force.
Yes.
But intuition doesn't necessarily have rules.
Chaos doesn't have rules either.
And intuition is chaos.
Only order has rules. Because that's what order is.
So interesting, because ego is always there. Intuition isn't. Intuition comes whenever it feels like.
Intuition comes when order gets the fuck out, or when ego gets the fuck out of the way. And you know when ego gets out of the way? When you're washing dishes, when you're walking around, when you're doing something so good you don't have to think about it.
So ego lives in flow.
Ego.
Sorry. Intuition lives in flow.
Intuition is flow.
Interesting.
Because when you're flowing, so when you're flowing, your intuition and your body are in sync. So whatever you do, you don't have to think about it because it's all happening at once. You know what I mean? So you're just flowing. Like I'm pretending I'm playing badminton right now because that was my sport. But you're playing and you're in the moment. You don't have to think about, let me bring my hand back, let me jump. You know what I mean? It's all. But when you have to think about it, imagine. This is the greatest example of all time, right? And I think maybe I gave you this example last time. But when you first start tying your shoe, you have to think about it, right? Because you're learning, and you'll be like, I don't want to do this wrong. I don't want when you're younger, I don't want my shoelaces to come and tie it in front of my friends because they're gonna make fun of me. Now you can literally tie your shoes and have a full-on conversation, not talk about it, not think about it. You could do whatever. You're in flow whenever you tie your shoes because you could do it subconsciously.
Wow. So our entire subconscious is always in flow.
Yes. Because there's nothing stopping it. The consciousness is what's stopping the unconscious. Right?
And ego, I feel like ego and the consciousness are synonymous.
Yes, because you do have control of the ego in the fact that you don't have to listen to it, right?
So you're free will is what you're saying.
Yes, right? And if you want to get into the conversation of free will, what is free will if the divine path is already on its path or whatever, but it's I think the gravity and the ego is the same thing, so we could see what that actually is, because we wouldn't be able to know, or how do I put this?
you wouldn't be able to know if it was free will or fate. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well,
Because it makes me think of the spectrum conversations and how ego is the opposite of intuition, order, chaos, fate, free will.
well, okay. So, but I don't think they're opposites because remember last time they're on the same slider.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the reason I think ego is, a part of nature is because ego is what makes us grow. Right? Like sometimes, like if you want to stay in your ego, you're going to stay weak. But because you don't want to do that, you'll grow and progress. You get what I'm saying? Like you're actively growing against something.
But I think what you just brought up is a great point, but it's also contradictory.
Okay.
Contradictory. Like ego is the very thing that makes us grow, but it's also the thing that makes us stay in.
Yes.
Because you can still grow being like, I want to be the best,
Mm-hmm.
but that's still ego. But I feel like the growth could be like, oh, I want to give my family a better life.
Yes.
But that's still the growth of ego.
Yes. And this is why, once again,
It's the same.
is ego good or bad? I don't
True.
know. People can say it's bad, but it could be good because if you had absolutely zero ego, you would also have no motivation to do anything.
Or no personality as well.
Yeah. You would just,
Yeah, real talk.
and then, you know what I mean? Like you would just be there doing nothing. But the ego is like, oh, well, I want $1 extra. You know what I mean? Or whatever it may be. That the ego is what makes you take that first step, at least. Something.
What do you think it would be like to experience all intuition
To experience all intuition.
at once? Would that be like oneness and connected back to source, do you think?
Yeah. So I think what that would be like is if you're in like the middle of the sun and then you'd be like, what's up? You get what I'm saying? Like if you're in the middle of the sun and all those chemical reactions are going all over the place and you're trying to like look around and be like, what's happening? You wouldn't even be able to see what's happening if you're in the middle of the sun.
So
and you were somehow able to survive. But you get what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what it would be like. Like, if you're in the middle of the sun, because the sun is, would say, kind of chaotic in a way, because we can't fully perceive what it's doing. Like, we know that there's chemical reactions going on inside, but we don't know to what degree or exactly what's happening or what time that reaction is going to happen and how it's going to affect here. But we do know that something's going on there. And then what we see on the outside of the sun is like we get the light and everything. So I think if we were to somehow be able to see everything,
It'd be overwhelming.
yeah, I think you would either be dead or asleep.
So that makes me think about some people intuitively know when they're going to die. Like, as they're reaching their...
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, is intuition stronger or the strongest? I wonder if... I think it might not have a peak. 'Cause I was thinking, is it strongest when it's closest to death? Because
Intuition?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I think intuition is intuition.
It's indifferent to circumstance and time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking intuition bypasses time. Because when you're in flow state, time...
Time moves differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it's chaotic, because Father Time is order.
Mm-hmm.
And it's able to...
Yeah, and we could even, because this is why I like you're talking about Father Time, and we're talking about Hermes, right? We're talking about Zeus, because I personally think these mythologies or stories are just like instructions for the universe,
Yes.
right? Because like, is there Zeus or is there a chemical reaction that makes lightning strikes? And if there's a certain vibration that always makes lightning strikes, what's the difference between that and Zeus? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like that vibe, that energy that makes lightning strikes, that could be Zeus or that could just be global.
I was thinking that ego has a part to play in the stories that we tell about how the earth was created, and all these mythologies ego personalizes the unexplainable, the chaos,
Yes.
and puts it into a format where we're able to make sense of the universe in order to conquer it.
Yeah, because even the ego made Zeus a white man. Like, who? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Because it's who created it, right?
Yes.
Probably a white man.
That's the whole thing, right? So that's where the ego comes in, right? Because
Gonna make it look in my image.
yeah, but once again,
Interesting.
it's like how do you? The only way to even describe that is to put it in that image, right? Because how do you draw everything? How I'm telling you, like, draw everything on this desk right now, because that's what God is.
That's so interesting. It's like I was just looking at that, and it reminds me of like, yeah, it's like a crop. When you take a picture, you're only taking a piece of what's going
Yes,
on.
a slice.
Yeah, that's like the universe. We can only encapsulate this frame. Like the camera doesn't know what's behind there,
No, it doesn't.
but it can only capture.
Yeah, it only captures this.
Yeah,
Right? So, and to your point, that's what trying to explain what God is, because God is already everything. God is, say, this whole room versus what this we're getting in the frame.
that's the human perspective.
Yeah, we only get the camera perspective,
But you can't even encapsulate everything.
but we know it's there, right?
Even if we can't see it, like we know that there's another room outside this door.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're seeing with your eyes.
And then seeing through.
Yeah, I have this joke that I'm working on, where I realized that there was this one time I realized I was blinder than a blind man, right? Because I realized, so this one time I was at this like hotel somewhere. This guy comes up to me, and I wasn't really like paying attention. I was on like, autopilot mode, right? This guy comes up to me, he's like, "Excuse me, where's the washroom?" I'm like, "Oh, it's right over there." Oh, I died. That's so funny. I'm like, "Oh, it's right over there," and I didn't realize that he was blind. But then I realized I knew that he knew that I didn't see that he was blind. So he was able to see somehow that I didn't see that he was blind. But I'm the one with working eyes.
Oh man.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like there's seeing, but then there's like seeing, there's perceiving, there's taking in, there's absorbing, there's I don't know what it is, but you like one thing that I practice, and I highly recommend everybody practice this as a form of meditation or whatever, but like you literally can walk around in your house
without your eyes. I take a shower like that. Like I do my entire routine and feel it out just to practice my senses.
Yeah. But you can walk around. I do this all the time. You can walk around your house with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Like you can do it. Yeah. But so many people, and this is where like maybe faith would come in, because you might be so scared because people trust their eyes, right? But they don't trust the 15, 20 years they've lived in that house. They don't trust all that experience they have.
I was just thinking, I wonder if that's why women, they say men fall for what they see, women fall for what they hear. Because, men are so visually stimulated.
Yes.
Whereas females are more feelings stimulated.
Yes. And you can, well, I mean, both the eyes and the ears can be tricked.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So, like, you might
lies and makeup.
Well, I was going to say, you could be like, oh, that chick, she got, a dump truck, but then it's fake.
Yeah.
My eyes deceived me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then also, a guy could say to a girl, oh, I'm going to take you on yachts, da-da-da-da-da. In their mind, they're going to see what I told them, but what I just told them was a lie. So they heard, you know what I mean? So there's that. Where was I? To that point, when you are in tune with yourself, you can almost see through all that bullshit, because it's like you don't even really care about it.
And that's where you're saying once you find your soulmate, you'll just feel it.
Yeah. It because it's as real as seeing it. It's literally as real as that, I feel like. Like I wouldn't say, I don't know if I've met my soulmate, or maybe I have. Because there's sometimes where I'm like, sometimes I feel like, I'm like, oh, this person's too much like me. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of suspect, but at the same time, it's like.
So then my question is, do you ever think that our soulmate will pass us by because we're not ready? But then I think if they're actually a soulmate.
Well, what I think is because, okay, so if we're in this like golden ratio, right? The way I see it is like the soulmate, regardless, because it's
On the same frequency consistently.
you're going to match up regardless, eventually. Whether it be, because some people say whether it be in this lifetime or 100 lifetimes, but I mean, once again, what is the difference? You know what I mean? So it's like, you might pass by your soulmate, or you've probably come into contact with your soulmate like 5 different times, right? And I think your soulmate is just a specific vibration. So even if you come into contact with 2 different people physically, because of their upbringing, they might have that same sort of vibe that they output that matches your vibe. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, they might have like a similar formula. So regardless of if they, they might be in Japan, they might be in Canada, they might be in the States, but definitely. They just have those like 8 attributes. That's like, okay, if they have this 8, that's soulmate frequency.
Do you think the idea of soulmates has become diluted because of our paradox of options, or what's it called? The paradox of choice?
Yeah. Yes.
Because that's when we don't listen to our intuition anymore. It's like, yeah, she could be my soulmate, but like, there could be someone better.
So okay, you're right. And another thing is like, back in the olden days, your soulmate was whoever the fuck was closest to you. Yeah. You had literally no choice.
Because if you ventured out, that's potential death.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Right? But nowadays, it's like you can just scroll, you can go on Tinder, IG, wherever, TikTok, whatever it may be. And you might be in your ego like, okay, I like this person, but I know there's more out there, so let me just try and get more. Or like, let me just do this, or let me not commit to this one thing. Because you have to commit to something, I think.
Yeah, or someone.
Otherwise,
you will never experience what true happiness is. And that's why I feel like it's such a danger for men who aren't dedicated to their purpose. They, like, some of the highest, I think the highest suicide rate is with males.
Yeah.
Because I feel like males now are super disconnected from.
Like, do you find, like you don't want to be almost like wandering around, like, aimlessly?
Because masculine energy is direction and
yes,
and order. If you're not a masculine man that's moving towards your purpose, then you'll find yourself very lost. And how can you lead a family when you don't know where you're going? You're just
how can you lead? Yeah, exactly. How can you lead anything? You're just wandering around. Hey, everyone, follow me in circles. Like, what good is that?
maybe that's why people are more single now than ever. The paradox of choice and the disconnection from intuition, because intuition will provide you with your purpose in order to move on. And then the paradox of choice is like, my ego is telling me I could have all of this. This person's not right for me. This person's not right for me. They could have. You guys could have. Yeah.
So to that point, I was talking about this with a friend of mine, but it's like the most extreme thing to do is actually to just do the simplest. Right? So it's like most people, what they want to do is, let me get 10 chicks, let me get the Lamborghini, Meanwhile, you could have had your soulmate if you're just living a simpler life, right? And that you could still be successful, because success is whatever you determine, right? So it's like, if people really wanted to, they could have gotten married, they could have had kids, if they really wanted to do that. But they don't, for the most part. I feel like they don't want to, or maybe they can't. I don't know, because you do have a lot of choice, therefore you don't choose, right? And because you don't choose, you don't actually progress anywhere, All right. So it's like you have to at least make that choice first of like, okay, I want to choose. I want to choose. I want to choose between cutting my hair or eating the chapstick. But you have to choose something, or else you're just gonna stay there. And
I was even thinking the longer it takes for you to make a choice, the longer you'll be unhappy. Because think about it, like if you were stuck between two different shirts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was gonna say like if you're stuck between more because of paradox of choice, but let's just stick with two.
We'll say 10 shirts.
Okay.
Is that too many?
Well, no, I think that's a good point because even if you had 10 shirts, you can identify your top three, but there will be a day in the future it'll be like you ever have that when you look into your closet thinking you bought something but you haven't, you're like, oh, I didn't even buy that.
No, I don't buy clothes like that, to be honest.
Interesting.
Like I have like shirts where I'll go back and I'll be like, damn, like I wish I bought that shirt, but it's not that it's because I buy so few like clothes. You know what I mean? So it's like that one shirt that I didn't buy still bugs. Well, it doesn't bug me, but it would have like bugged me that you didn't buy this shirt.
It's okay. So it's similar then because for me when I'm buying clothes, I'm thinking what outfit can I wear?
Okay. Yeah.
With this, so with the paradox of choice, we most times know what's best for us, but sometimes we think that
oh shoot. It's 3 o'clock. We might have to wrap this up.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, that was an hour 40. Hold on. Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap this up. My bad, dude.
It's okay.
Yeah, that will be today's episode. I didn't. Oh, that's him. Hold on. Yo, Zeus. My bad, dude. I got. All right, my bad. I didn't realize we've been going for an hour 40. Talk about the camera's dead. That's how long we've been going. Talk about flow state. Yeah, dude, great episode. First of all, great conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Before we end this, I usually like to end this with 2 things of gratitude. Is there, what 2 things are you grateful for today?
Probably my girlfriend.
Okay.
And my family.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are 2 things. My sister's getting married this weekend.
Nice.
Well, so
Congratulations.
It's been an interesting process to see growth.
Yeah. Nice.
How about you?
For me, I would say one thing I'm grateful for is one thing I'm grateful for is for intuition. Like I'm super grateful for that. Like because that's something that I rely on. I rely on intuition because those are the most, at least for me, uninhibited thoughts, right? So I'm super grateful for those. And like I was saying, I meditate on them. I pray for them, and I actively try and receive more intuitions.
I'm going to do that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll tell you how. And the second thing that I'm grateful for is, I keep looking at the camera, but it's dead. I'm grateful for like-minded people as well. I think that having like-minded people around you that inspire you to just do better or just to create or do something or even to just learn is super important. So I'm grateful for that as well. Yeah. Do you have any... where can the people find you? I keep looking at the camera, but it's dead. Where can the people find you?
The people can find me on any social platform or streaming platform under Remmorii, REMMORII.
Blessed. And you guys could find me at 𝓟There, 𝓟The. Follow me on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, maybe. I don't know if I'm on there. I don't want to be on there, but
I have to. I'm like tagging you.
I know. This guy's like, yo, respond to comments. I know. Okay, follow me on TikTok as well. But until next time, here's the outro music. Peace. What's up, explorers? Hope you enjoyed the episode. Just a reminder, once again, if you haven't already, go ahead and check the link in the description below to join our Patreon. There you'll find exclusive behind-the-scenes content that's not for the YouTube, just for the Patreon, just for those that want to go that next step further and support the page. So yeah, go ahead and check it out. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, leave a comment. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would like to see, if you have any topics. But, you know, topics is for the Patreon members only. So go ahead and check out the Patreon. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Later.
Peace.
Further.
I'm sorry?
You said my skills extend farther than the basketball court. Farther relates to distance. Further is a definition of degree. You should have said further.